After 8 years of restoration, the Dar al-Consul complex of the Custody of the Holy Land was inaugurated, a place intended to welcome tourists and pilgrims, to offer job opportunities for young people, to improve the living conditions of Palestinian families, and for the preservation of the Palestinian cultural heritage. After 11 years, the Franciscan March was held in Syria. About 100 young people from different Syrian cities participated in the event. The holy book for Jews is the Torah, which consists of the first 5 books of the Bible. A group of Jews has recently been learning more about Christianity through a course on the New Testament. A visit to the Monastery of Temptation above Jericho, a place that commemorates Jesus' days of fasting in the desert after his baptism in the Jordan. On November the 9th, after 8 years of restoration work, the historic complex, the House of the Consul, known in Arabic as Dar al-Consul, was inaugurated in the heart of the old city of Jerusalem. It was an initiative by the Custody of the Holy Land, owner of the building, and financed by the European Union and the Custody itself. This project is managed by the United Nations Habitat Programme, UN Habitat, in collaboration with Al-Quds University. After the opening ceremony, Brother Ramzi Sidawi, bursar of the Custody of the Holy Land, guided an introductory tour attended by Brother Francesco Patton, Custos of the Holy Land, the members of the Discretorium, Ziyad El-Shakra, head of the United Nations Habitat Programme Office for Palestine, Sven Kuhn von Burgstoff, head of the European Union delegation, and Imad Khatib, executive vice president of Al-Quds University in Jerusalem. The work was divided between the rehabilitation and renovation of 42 housing units, not only in the interior, but also on the exterior. We renovated all the inner courtyards, corridors, and the infrastructure of the whole area. As for the ground floor, it was a huge project, as we discovered many artifacts from the Roman, Byzantine, and Mamluk periods. The site contains several spaces that will be enjoyed by pilgrims and visitors guided by local people. We found a tomb dating back to the 6th or 7th century before Christ. It was one of the most amazing things. This also allowed us to understand the historical period, the oldest found at this site. In Roman times, this site was located on the Cardo Maximus, the main street of the city. During the excavations, we found traces of stores that faced the Cardo, but also traces of other side streets that intersected the main one, demonstrating how the old city was at that time. We found Roman canals carved into the rock. Among the archaeological findings, there is also a Byzantine bathroom partly decorated with mosaics, proof that prestigious people lived in this place. We also found a Byzantine-era well paved with mosaics measuring 15 square meters. Dar al-Consul, underlined engineer Dahabre, is well identifiable on the ancient map of Madaba, where many buildings of Jerusalem are represented, some without name. During the inauguration, an olive tree, a symbol of peace, was planted inside the site by Brother Patton.
And so we hope that these kind of projects will help the development of the old city and of the whole holy city. For me, it was a pleasure to know that many young students of the local university were working on this project.
For Al-Quds University and its students and professors, this was a great opportunity. First, they were able to share their experience, but also learn during the 8 years of restoration. Then they can collaborate in the future on this complex, which will also serve as a business incubator and will be managed by Al-Quds University.
It's really a partnership of all these organizations. It's a partnership which shows what we can do with Jerusalem as a prospect for Palestinians living here and preserving the cultural heritage and values of the Palestinian people.
Brother Ramzi, accompanied by Ziyad El-Shakra, then went upstairs where the second part of the project, namely the renovation of the housing units, was completed. An olive tree seedling was donated to the residents. A house has been made available to us, and we are not paying any expenses, thank God. As you know, renting an apartment today costs more than $1,000. We thank God, and we thank the Franciscans. UN in general is about helping people improve the environment where they live. So in addition to facilities, utilities and infrastructure, we are also concerned with improving housing units. Dar al-Consul will be designed to welcome tourists and pilgrims, provide employment opportunities for young people, improve the living conditions of Palestinian families, and help preserve Palestinian cultural heritage. It's the 7th Franciscan March. This year is special because it returns after 11 years of interruption due to the war and crisis in Syria. The last edition of the march, in fact, was in 2010. I encourage every young person, man or woman, to have this experience, especially those who don't know themselves or their mission in life, so that they can discover it on this march. Thanks be to God who always leads to victory. Like the poor, we have nothing, but we have enriched many people. Despite the darkness and anguish, war, fear and death that destroyed the most beautiful years of life, that tried to extinguish the light and spirit of youth, and that led to despair in hearts and weakening of faith, the Syrian Franciscan youth returned to their path, broke through the darkness and saw the light. The 7th edition of the march, with the title On the Way of Francis, started from Autan, passing through Barshin and Kafrun, up to Bakto. 103 young men and women joined the Franciscan friars with fraternal love to live the faith, joy, simplicity of the gospel and Franciscan spirituality. Coming from all the parishes and cities of Syria, they united in their love for life, for the church and for brotherhood. For these young people it was a journey through the streets in the heart of Syria, but also an inner journey into the depth of their humanity and their faith, to establish a deep bond with God, in the love of His Son and in the power of His Holy Spirit.
I took part in the march full of enthusiasm and confident that it would be beautiful despite the fatigue. I wanted to experience how to live the spirituality of St. Francis. We lived chastity, poverty, and obedience. We lived love and inner peace. I had more than wonderful moments with people who became part of my family. A beautiful experience. My relationship with God was strengthened. I learned to be detached and give up most of the things I needed in my life. And now, I don't need them anymore.
A small church full of life, strength, hope and love in God, who tried not to be affected by the lack of electricity, water, food, the looseness from the outside world, cell phones, internet, as well as the rain, cold and debilitating economic situation. They challenged themselves and circumstances to reach the goal they set out for. I joined because this experience is beyond wonderful, and it pushed us towards Christ. The experience we gained during this march is very Christian and taught us how sometimes we live with doubt among the existence of God or other things about God, but thanks to the march we were reminded that God is always present and with us. They became brothers in the love of Christ and the joy of St. Francis, united in one heart, one faith and one prayer with their brothers and their guides, the friars of St. Francis. Coming from all countries, they have overcome borders, circumstances and time to offer all their love, experience and support and good example to their young brothers in the Church, who are the future, energy and joy in the face of wars and evil.
جيت لهذا المسير لأنه عن جد كلياتنا بحاجة نعيش تجارب حلوة بحياتنا وهيك.
I participated in this march because each of us needs to have good and difficult experiences, to test ourselves. I had so many good experiences with so many people and met so many people from other provinces. I learned new prayers and got closer to Jesus. In fact, we took advantage of everything we did, the themes or the prayers or even the way we walked. Although sometimes many people said they couldn't do it anymore, in the end, there was something stronger than us that gave us strength. Jesus, who was always with us.
هو بخلينا يعني نقدر اللي هو يسوع لأنه هو دايما معنا.
This march also helped many find their vocation. Some of them felt called to be fathers or mothers, others to be monks or nuns, but all called to be supportive and good servants of the Church.
أكيد هدف المسير اللي هو نحن نعيش على خطى القديس فرانسيس.
Certainly the goal of this march was to live in the footsteps of St. Francis of Assisi and his spirituality. Through this journey, loading up with bags, these young people were able to live or understand what St. Francis experienced in Italy. During this march, we contemplated the beauty of the nature of our country. At the same time, we visited churches that were new to us, and we prayed for the people who welcomed us in the monasteries and the villages we passed through, as St. Francis did. Peace and good was the greeting he used wherever he passed or whatever person he met. Our greetings have always been peace and good as well.
سلامنا كان دائما هو سلام وخير.
God's powerful, beautiful, tender hand and great care made this march possible, as did the intercession of the Virgin Mary, Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception, who protected this march and embraced everyone with her motherhood and mantle. Attentive looks at every explanation, pens or cell phones in hand to take notes. Indispensable material is the Bible, because the goal is an in-depth study of the New Testament. Hebrew is spoken because the participants in this New Testament course are Jewish.
I have over 100 appearing every Sunday and every Thursday night for an hour and a half. We are taking one chapter after the other and studying it. Now, it is a very, very interesting and very lively study because people are immersed in the Jewish tradition. So we're reading the New Testament in Hebrew, of course.
And here the interest in knowledge is great.
This is the most amazing. I'm amazed by this course. First of all, it takes a lot of effort from me, but when I bring it to the people, and there's afterwards questions, and people bring ideas that are so brilliant that I'm enriched because they come with, hey, but that is really like Isaiah, and this is really like a prayer that we have. People are engaged. It's wonderful.
The course takes place at the Saxon Visitor Center in Abu Ghosh, located 13 kilometers from Jerusalem. Through modern technology and digital media, you can make a virtual pilgrimage to the places through which Jesus passed.
We explained the Old Testament first, and then the New. We have a chronology of the Old Testament and a big map with the Holy Land of the time of the Old Testament. Then we have this room, dedicated to the first century, where you can see the languages that were spoken at the time of Jesus, what life was like at that time, life in the temple, because Jesus went there to pray, and also a map where we see the villages mentioned in the Gospel. And then further down, we have the explanation of the holy places. Because, for example, today we go to pray in Nazareth, in the Basilica of the Annunciation, or what Mary's house was like at the time she lived there.
Perché andiamo oggi a pregare a Nazareth, alla Basilica dell'Annunciazione, come era la casa di Maria al tempo di Maria.
For this political science student, learning about the New Testament is an incredible experience that he recommends to everyone.
I tell them about the beautiful and amazing things there are there, and I really recommended them just to try and to read there, because you can find there amazing things.
At an altitude of 350 meters on a barren mountain stands the Greek Orthodox Monastery of Temptations, and also known as the Mount of Quarantine, a unique architectural masterpiece that rises above the city of Jericho. The name is derived from 40, in Arabic al-Karantal, to indicate Jesus' days of fasting in the desert. The origin of the Arabic word is Neo-Latin. The monastery dates back to the 4th century during the reign of Queen Helena, Constantine's mother, and stands on the ancient cave where, according to tradition, Jesus stayed. In the church you can admire icons representing Jesus, the Virgin Mary, and numerous saints. A stone indicates the traditional site of Jesus' first temptation. Above the church, a Greek Orthodox monastery was built in 1895, consisting of 30 rooms, some of which were carved into the rock. Its balconies seem to be suspended in the air. In the past, access to the monastery was on foot up the rocky slope, but in 1998 the construction of a cable car has facilitated access, which doubled the number of pilgrims. There they can admire the ancient city of Jericho and visit a series of caves where the hermits used to live.
طبعا في كتير سياحة بتتوجه خصوصا
There is some active tourist flow to the Mount of Temptation, especially from Orthodox believers from Russia, Greece, Ukraine, Georgia, Romania and other areas. They come mainly to pray and ask for blessings.
كل المناطق الأرثوذكسية طبعا بتيجي لهاي المنطقة ولا جبل كرونتول للتعبد للتنسك لحتى أخذ بركة كمان من الدير المقدس.
Once arrived at the monastery, the visitor can contemplate the silence in an atmosphere of austerity and adoration. Here, according to tradition, Jesus repelled the temptations of the devil, saying, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, the Lord thy God shalt thou adore. To him alone shalt thou worship, thou shalt not put the Lord thy God to the test."
فدائما أنا رسالتي إنه إحنا نقاوم التجربة، نقاوم إبليس، نقاوم شهوات.
My message is always to resist the devil's temptation and sin. In every day of our lives there are problems, persecutions and difficulties, but just as Jesus Christ fasted 40 days on the mountain, we too must know how to resist. Salvation is in the kingdom of heaven, but the devil is always trying to trap us, tempt us and keep us from looking forward and achieving the goal we desire.
ويخليناش نطلع لقدام لحتى نوصل للهدف اللي نحن بدنا إياه.
The Monastery of Temptation is a spiritual beacon in the desert against the temptations of the devil.